everything litty, I love when it's hot. Turned to the city, I broke all the knots. Got some more millies, I
What is going on, you beautiful bastards? It's your boy Said Reacts. We're back with another reaction. We're back with some true crime today. We got how a gaming community tracked down a murderer. Case of Menhaz Zaman. Menhaz Zaman. Yeah, I don't know Coffee House Crime. I've never seen their channel before. This is the first video of theirs, so I'm not ready for. I don't know what I'm expecting. But we got some true crime back on the channel. I know some of y'all are happy about that. So yeah, without further ado, I hope you guys are ready for it. I'm ready. Get it. Oh.
Menhaz Zaman was a young Canadian man with a bright future and was studying mechanical engineering at York University. Or at least, so he led his parents to believe. In reality, he was never even accepted into the school's program, and instead of coming clean about his failure, he continued to allow the deceit to grow.
Why do people do that? Not the first true crime case that someone has done that. And I feel like it's kind of weird, you know, in a way, because they're going to find out, you know, and what happens when they find out?
As the years passed by, his double life became harder to hide, and with his supposed graduation mere days away, Menhaz would snap in the most horrific of ways.
There it is.
Not only would he ultimately murder his entire family, but he was determined to make it known to as many people as he could. One by one, he would post pictures of his criminal actions to an online Discord community, and although initially thought to be a sick joke, one by one, his online friends realized that his violent actions were in fact all too real. Without knowing his full name, age, or even country, the online Discord community were up against the clock to reveal his true identity and stop any further murders from happening. But would they find Menhaz in time? And how many lives would he ultimately claim? Welcome back to Coffee House Crime, folks. My name is Adrian, and today we're looking at the brutal case of Menhaz Zaman, also known as the Discord Killer. Coffee House Crime is all about covering true crime, strange and chilling stories. And the best way to support me is by subscribing to my channel. So, if you'd like to see more videos like today's case, then please remember to subscribe, and I may just have to give you a coffee on the house. But first, a quick word from a long-term sponsor, Babbel, one of the top language learning apps in the world. Imagine this, you're on a holiday in Berlin and the summer weather is absolutely
you guys know the deal.
beautiful, and you're dying for a drink.
I'm not gonna skip through this. This is his video. I don't skip, you know, sponsors. I feel like it's kind of wrong to do. If you guys want to skip ahead, feel free to do so. I'll pause at the end so you know when to come back to. But that's it. I'm not skipping ads. Not skipping sponsor.
Have real and meaningful conversations, including travel, business, relationships, and more. Babbel is scientifically proven to help you start speaking a new language in just 3 weeks. It also has a 20-day money-back guarantee with several subscriptions to choose from, so you really can't go wrong.
Wir suchen etwas für eine Woche.
Wir suchen etwas für eine Woche. Now, sadly, Babbel hasn't taught me how to speak to my cats yet, but in the meantime, they have mastered the art of learning many languages around the world, including German. So, out of curiosity, what language would you like to learn? Please let me know in the comments down below. Click the link below and you'll get a massive 60% off your subscription. And thank you, Babbel, for sponsoring today's video. And now, with that said, please grab yourself a coffee, pull up a seat, and get ready for the deep dive.
We're back. You're back.
This is the case of Menhaz Zaman.
I like the aesthetic. It's kind of cool.
Welcome to Bangladesh, folks.
Weirdly
Although
relaxing
truth be
for a true
told,
crime
our
channel.
story actually happens in Toronto, Canada.
Toronto.
The family of our story
Toronto.
begins with a dream involving immigration. Far away from the snow-capped ash trees of Toronto, we find the insanely busy streets of Bangladesh.
That's gonna piss me off. That one's gonna annoy me. I know it's dumb, but it's Toronto, not Toronto.
Bangladesh. And this truly is a new place for coffee house crime. With a population of just over
Jesus
169
Christ.
million people, Bangladesh is a densely populated
A lot of
nation with a
people.
vibrant history, ancient architecture, rich culture, and of course, beautiful landscape. Bangladesh tells a remarkable story of growth, success, poverty reduction, and redevelopment. From being one of the poorest nations at its dawning in 1971, the country managed to reach lower middle income status by 2015. And amazingly, it is on track to graduate from the UN's least developed countries list in 2026. Formerly being part of India and then Pakistan, it has outpaced both of its neighbours in terms of per capita income. And incredibly, in a mere 60 years, life expectancy at birth has rocketed from 45 to 71 years.
That's really
Although
good.
most of us imagine the great urban sprawl when we think of Bangladesh, it also has incredible natural beauty outside of its cities. Lakes, valleys, and wetlands spread across the country. And of course, we can't forget the Bay of Bengal to the south. As you can imagine, all of this is a far cry from Canada, and more specifically Toronto. Titled the nation's financial and commercial centre, it comes with all of the general taglines that you'd expect. That being multicultural, vibrant, and of course, diabolically expensive to live in. Fun fact, but did you know that there are more than 10 million trees in Toronto? This incredibly means that there are more trees than people. It's a good thing that they can't wage war on us.
Yeah, Canada does that as well. In Montreal, like, it's a massive city, but there is a lot of trees. I think it's good in a big city like that to have that many trees around. It makes you feel, makes you feel better about, I don't know. It makes you feel better for something.
Anyway, our story today begins with a hard-working man from Bangladesh named Menhaz Zaman. Happily married to his wonderful wife Menhaz, who was born in India, the couple had lofty ambitions for their future family. They decided that, in order to achieve the lives that they desired, it was best for them to leave their home countries and find a new place to begin a family. And so, 2 years later, the two migrated to the great city of Toronto, Canada. Fast forward 6 years, Menhaz and Menhaz gave birth to their first son named Menhaz. And to complete the family picture, they welcomed their daughter Melissa into the world 2 years later. Menhaz and Menhaz were naturally brilliant parents, with the family's mother being particularly close with her children. Friends described Menhaz as a lovely and pleasant person who was known to be generous, caring, and kind, and she spent much of her time helping those that she cared the most about. This included driving them to appointments, offering a way to pay for shared meals, or even making some of her famous dinner dishes, which, of course, she learned back home in India. All in all, Menhaz was a well-liked and well-respected woman in her neighborhood and the Bangladeshi expat community alike. Menhaz was more of an introverted type when compared to his wife, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't equally well-respected. Described as a humble yet proud man, he was a deeply devoted Muslim that loved his family above all else, and worked as a taximan throughout Toronto's metropolitan area. Dedicated and with many years of experience, he had an excellent understanding of the area that he serviced. As such, he received multiple Employee of the Month awards, and was recognized as one of the most outstanding taxi drivers in his company. With both parents being ambitious immigrants, they naturally had high expectations for their children. Menhaz and Menhaz believed that Menhaz and Melissa would go on to work in high-paying, respectable jobs that would go on to feed comfortable and prosperous lives. Although these humble parents didn't have much fortune while growing up, they were determined to give their children the opportunities they deserved. However, in return, they expected cooperation and nothing short of excellence from them back. After making the move to Canada, the parents' driven attitudes found them slow but steady success. At first, they purchased a small home on McCowan Road, found in Scarborough, and eventually, with good financial management, they were eventually able to purchase 2 investment properties. The
Dude, they're doing very well then.
first being a condo in the same town of Scarborough, and the second a house close by in Danforth. Menhaz took the responsibility of being the rental manager for both of these properties, and slowly but surely over time, the family's wealth grew while they rented out both houses. However, the Zaman family had also been growing over the years, and the now mother of 2 felt overburdened with the responsibility of 2 children and 3 properties. Her mother, Feroza, moved from India into the family household, allowing Menhaz to focus on her 2 children and have a healthy work-life balance. By the year 2006, they purchased a larger 4-bedroom house in the nearby city of Markham, which is also home to a thriving Bangladeshi community. Now, at the time, it was very common to think that in order to succeed in life, you had to be in some sort of vocational job like engineering or medical. And of course, Menhaz and Menhaz took that mentality to heart and pushed both their children in that direction. Melissa had dreams of becoming a neurosurgeon, and as for Menhaz, he was to become an engineer. However, despite their plans for their children to succeed, their paths to success were not going to be easy. Melissa was definitely more of a wild child, and although she was able to succeed academically, she often rebelled and pushed back against her parents. Known for sneaking out, drinking, and smoking weed, she enjoyed actively challenging the authority in her household. This, predictably, was often met with strict and even questionable discipline too. If Melissa broke her curfew, then her father would lock her out of the house, forcing her to sleep outside. Being the caring mother, Menhaz would often be the one to secretly unlock the back door and let her daughter back in. But apparently, Melissa and her father's arguments sometimes got so bad that neighbours would call the police out of concern. Her older brother, Menhaz, however, had quite a different temperament. Described as shy and reclusive, he was known to be his mother's favourite. Menhaz cared for her son so much that she would often go out of her way just to do anything for him. If he ever needed a ride, she would often be there to pick him up. She would cook his meals, clean his room, and always pick him up from school to give him a homemade lunch. Being the firstborn, Menhaz felt considerable pressure from his parents to succeed and to conform to their exacting standards. But while he wasn't in school or studying, he did use his free time to escape the real world and play video games, often diving into MMO games such as Perfect World. In Perfect World, Menhaz was able to play as an avatar of his very own creation, and through his avatar he could interact and play with people all across the world, and free from his normal shy and insecure personality. This game would quickly become a form of sanctuary for Menhaz, and in return he quickly became obsessed, spending all of his free time there. The only other place he spent quite a lot of his time was at the mosque with his father. Otherwise, he was in his room playing with his online friends. As he moved into a senior year of high school, Menhaz had some very exciting news to share with his parents. Apparently, he had just been accepted into York University's mechanical engineering program. Now, of course, Menhaz and Menhaz were extremely pleased to hear the news, and this solidified his position as the golden child of the family. While on the outside this may have seemed like a good thing, in reality it put even more pressure on Menhaz to succeed, giving him less room for mistakes or failure. And with all of this pressure mounting, Menhaz slipped even further into isolation and online gaming.
That's like the one big lie that completely spun everything out of control for him, I feel like, because if he hadn't lied about that, then, you know, your parents are still going to love you, buddy. You don't have to lie about getting accepted into that prestigious of a school. If you didn't apply anywhere, they're going to be really mad at you, but, you know, go work for a year and then apply, you know? Just don't lie about it, man.
Menhaz played on a modified version of Perfect World, run by its own group of players with their own rules and community. Through the popular online communication app named Discord, Menhaz talked with his friends and other players in this community. The environment here was normally quite positive, with people forming genuine connections with others through the game, many even staying in contact for years after. Now, for someone so shy in the outside world, this was a place where Menhaz thrived. He likely felt much more comfortable expressing his true and authentic self in the game, which is quite the contrast compared to the tense and demanding environment that he was used to at home. While Menhaz disconnected from the real world through his game, his sister continued to lash out and challenge her parents. At one point, even getting arrested for shoplifting. But fortunately for her, her charges were later dropped in exchange for community service hours. She eventually moved out of the home to live with her boyfriend, but despite her departure, Menhaz could still feel the residual tension that his sister left behind. This increase in pressure pushed him to once again recede even further into his game, of course further blocking out the world all around him. While Melissa began to move away from her parents' expectations, the parents turned towards their son as the saving grace of the family. They often spoke to their community about his accomplishments, and would brag about how he was on track to be an engineer just like they wanted. However, Menhaz had one very big secret. He wasn't attending York University at all. In fact, he had never been invited.
I'm gonna assume that he probably doesn't even want to be an engineer. You know, you shouldn't push your kid into a a job they don't want to do, I feel like that's a very slippery slope, you know, because then they're gonna start lying to you. It puts like unmeasurable amount of pressure on them to, you know, I mean, you're already going at school performing to get the best grade you can, and now you're at home and you gotta try to impress your parents as well. Like,
in reality, he was attending a much less prestigious school named Seneca Community College. And to top it all
which is
off,
perfectly fine.
apparently his grades were abysmal too. His non-curricular
Rough.
life was not too peachy either. All he did was play video games, and
Yep.
he had also become an atheist, which would be sure to upset his parents. He also complained about his lack of independence from his family, and often complained about how his mum and dad controlled every aspect of his life. This extended into his love life too. Menhaz was actually dating a woman online, but his parents were extremely unhappy about it.
Yeah.
And of course, this grated on him. Menhaz hungered for some sort of control or autonomy in his life, and it looks like he found this through the game Perfect World alongside his friends and the Discord community. Now, despite initially doing well in school, his grades began to slip as he became more obsessed with the game. He began to skip classes, and even, for the first time in his life, started to fail subjects. It eventually got to the point where Menhaz was having to repeat almost all of his preliminary classes, and with having little interest left in university, he officially stopped going to class entirely, eventually deciding to solely focus on his gaming life. While all of this was going on, his parents had no idea what was happening. They still believed that he was attending York University, and the longer that this lie continued, the harder the truth would be to swallow. Despite not actually attending any classes, Menhaz would still travel to the campus daily. However, instead of going to class, he would set his laptop up in a cafe and play Perfect World instead. He would then go to the gym and work out, travel back home, and continue playing late into the night. As Menhaz continued to
like, at that point, maybe take a year off from school, because you're too far deep, right? So I'm trying to think about what you would do at that point. Maybe take a year off from school and get a job, you know, and then you realize that you don't really like that job and that's not what you want to do your whole life. So probably gonna go back to school after that. You know what I mean?
play instead of study. He sometimes mentioned to his online friends that he was thinking about leaving the game for good. He would often darkly joke about how he was going to jail soon, though his friends didn't know why. Although the average person may see those messages and find them concerning, Menhaz apparently was well known for posting edgy and often disturbing humor like this in his Discord. So, to all of his friends around him, it didn't seem to ring any alarm bells.
Yeah.
He was also known for joking about homophobia, religion, and other sensitive topics. But with this being a gaming community, no one paid any real attention to his negative comments. As time passed by, it became apparent that his humor was becoming darker and much more sinister. Menhaz was trying to provoke reactions from the group, and his jokes were becoming so offensive that it resulted in multiple week bans from the community. Safe to say, Menhaz clearly didn't have much going on in his real life, and now that he was banned from Perfect World, he had time to realize the gravity of his ongoing lies. He couldn't keep the facade up for much longer either. The year was now 2019, and he was 4 years into his impressive deception. Which also meant that, by the end of this summer, he was supposed to graduate. To stop his parents from learning the truth, he gave them a fake graduation ceremony date of July the 28th, and as that date loomed even closer, he began to exhibit even more disturbing and sinister behavior online.
Dude, 4 years is a long time. How do you not even suspect your kid is lying for that long?
Changing his online name to
don't know.
Subhuman and Don't Deserve Life, he began to joke about taking his own life and talked about how it felt to be consumed by worthlessness. Perhaps due to his normalized toxic behavior in the past, but the people he chatted to barely took any notice of these messages. If anything, they most likely saw a sad kid simply looking for attention. While Menhaz fretted and began to spiral even further, his sister was beginning to mend her relationship with their parents. And after moving back in with the family, she herself actually began to attend York to study science. From an outsider's perspective, the family seemed to be happy and successful, with new beginnings and an increasingly positive future. Realizing that he was about to lose his title as the Golden Child, one member of the family was about to carry out the unthinkable. The date was July the 27th. It was a Saturday, and the day before Menhaz's alleged graduation ceremony. Throughout the morning, all other members of the family headed out to work. Monoraz hopped into his taxicab, Momotaz headed to a property, and Melissa headed to a part-time job at the grocery store. To put things short, the day began like any other workday, and at around 3 PM, Menhaz's mother and grandmother headed upstairs to go for a nap, which was just part of their daily ritual. It was during this time, and while knowing their schedule, that Menhaz menacingly made his first move, thus beginning a terrible series of actions that would change the family forever. Silently breaking into his mother's bedroom, he struck her over the head with a crowbar, knocking her unconscious. And afterwards, to make sure he finished the job, he cut her throat before walking out of the room and back down to his computer. Opening up Discord, as he had done thousands of times before, he prepared to send the first of multiple graphic messages. For all of the members of the community to see, he posted a picture of his mother's bloodied body with the murder weapon lying next to her. Shortly after, he went upstairs again, crowbar in hand, and did the very same thing to his grandmother. And just as before, he calmly walked back downstairs, opened Discord, and then posted the gruesome evidence.
That creeps me the fuck out. I don't even know how do you get to that point, man?
Of his crime. Those more accustomed to Menhaz's dark
That's
humor
crazy.
assumed that this was likely just another sick joke, albeit fake. However, other people who were not so familiar with his behavior were quite alarmed. Both photos appeared to be extremely realistic and seemed unlikely to be a hoax. After these photos, Menhaz posted a message to say, "I killed my mum and granny so far, waiting for my sister in 5 minutes and my dad in an hour." It was at this moment that other gamers started to take him seriously, recognizing that the situation was potentially an ongoing murder spree. By now, several Discord users were convinced that they were experiencing multiple homicides right in front of their eyes. And, even worse, there was nothing they could do to stop it. Gamers scrambled to try and figure out who this man was to try and stop any further murders from occurring. But Menhaz had long been both coy and covert. Nobody knew his name, age, or even the country that he lived in. One of Menhaz's closest online friends, named Junior, was messaged by several other people within the Discord community. These messages spurred him into action, and he asked Menhaz if these images were in fact real. Menhaz responded by saying that sadly they were, and that furthermore, he was going to kill both his father and sister in the coming hours. And, even worse, there was nothing that anybody could do. Several agonizing minutes later, Melissa returned home to an eerily silent house, and only after she closed the door and walked further into the house to investigate was she met with Menhaz. Her brother attacked her in the same manner as he did their mother and grandmother, with a crowbar in hand. After her death, Menhaz once again took a photo of her body, this time privately sending it to another one of his friends on Discord named John. He captioned the message, saying that his sister had fought him for almost 10 minutes, both crying and screaming the entire time. Another private message read, "Literally told my parents my uni graduation was July the 28th. I couldn't have delayed it any longer. I did this because I don't want my parents to feel the shame of having a son like me. I'm a pathetic coward and a subhuman." Menhaz then sent John more pictures, including a picture of the murder weapon, and even more.
I've always said this, and I truly mean it, even though it might be despicable and hateful of me to mean this, but if you're thinking about ending someone's life, start with yourself. I 100% believe in that.
More disturbing, a selfie with a bloodstained knife. Horrified, John sent those photos to the rest of the group, proving that Menhaz had gone through with a third murder. Members of the Discord community were sensibly saving them immediately, ensuring that they could build as much evidence against Menhaz as possible. Menhaz went back to playing his game as if nothing had happened, waiting until around midnight when his father eventually came home. The young man was ready to catch his father off guard, and after Monoraz walked into their garage, he too was bludgeoned over the head. This was met with a familiar knife afterwards. As with all other members of his family, Menhaz then posted a photo to the Discord community, who knew that, despite their best efforts, had failed to stop his monstrous plan. Replying to one of the users, Menhaz wrote, "I'm a pathetic coward and a subhuman. Since I'm an atheist, I believe there is no afterlife. So I was scared to die. and I wanted them to die so they didn't suffer knowing how much of a pathetic subhuman I was. It's all very selfish. I'm just pathetic. To another friend, he wrote, I've just slaughtered my entire family and will likely spend life in jail if I manage to survive. I'm sorry. Do you want the pics? Menhaz sent countless messages to his friends later that night, apologizing for his actions while sharing images of the murder scene. But not all was lost in finding their killer.
Man.
In fact, they were just about to get lucky. One of the members of the community eventually worked out how to acquire Menhaz's IP address. An IP address is a unique identifier for internet-connected devices that can give an indication of their geographical location. If they could find it and then connect it to a home address, they might have a shot at alerting the police to the location of their online acquaintance. With this valuable information collected, his location had been whittled down to the city of Toronto. One of the Discord members, who was located in Minnesota, contacted his local police department, who then transferred him to Toronto PD. And after forwarding Menhaz's name and IP address, officers got to work with the concerning details. Friends kept Menhaz engaged in the meantime, one asking, "What will you do with the rest of your time now? At this point, the action is done." Menhaz replied with, "Eat junk food, visit my girlfriend, drink and smoke. I've never drank alcohol or a cigarette." From here on out, it was simply a matter of time.
I mean, you could have done all of that, you know, regardless of what you did. Like, you didn't have to end people's life to drink and smoke. No,
Responding officers were able to track the IP address, contact the local service provider, who were then able to give the actual address to where Menhaz's family lived. You know, for someone as obsessed with both gaming and computers, you would have thought that Menhaz would have used some kind of VPN to hide his location. So, I guess it looks like that golden child was not actually that intelligent to begin with. 12 hours after the first murder occurred, and officers were knocking on the front door of the Zaman residence, and after peering upwards, they noticed a figure looking at them through the front bedroom window. Now, at this point in time, officers did not have that much to work with. All they knew is that members of an online community were making bizarre and dark claims. However, Menhaz was ready to make it easy for them, and after sending a final message on Discord, which said, "The police are here, goodbye," he made his own way downstairs, opened the door, and gave himself up to the authorities. Asking him who's home, Menhaz replied with, "My family." When another officer asked where they were, Menhaz replied with, "You'll see." As the authorities began to explore the silent home, its morbid secrets were revealed after an officer stumbled over one of the bodies. Monoraz and Melissa were found first. Then came the discovery of Menhaz, and finally Feroza. Toronto PD immediately placed Menhaz under arrest on suspicion of homicide, before transporting him to the local police station for processing and interrogation. During his interview, Menhaz seemed entirely unfazed as he recounted the events, almost as if it meant absolutely nothing to him. He was eventually charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of second-degree murder. The case was essentially a slam dunk in court, as the Perfect World community that had been monitoring the case in real time had saved every message sent by Menhaz. They meticulously archived every piece of media sent during his murderous rampage, incriminating him beyond any reasonable doubt. Addressing the court during his sentencing, he said, "I would like to apologize to anyone I have negatively impacted with my actions, especially to the people who knew my family, friends, and loved ones who I know could have never seen something like this come from me." In November of 2020, Menhaz Zaman was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility parole for the first 40 years of his sentence. At the age of just 24, he won't have the possibility of freedom until he's at least 64 years old. He now remains behind bars to live out the rest of his sentence, punished for taking the lives of 4 beautiful people that cared for him so much. At the time of their deaths, his father, Monoraz, was 59 years old, his mother, Momotaz, 50, his grandmother, 70, and his sister, just 21. Despite his parents sacrificing everything for him, he paid them back in the worst of ways. And now, nothing is left of the Zaman family, except for one deranged killer with the blood of his family on his hands. I think that just about does it for today's case, folks. I'm going to wrap this one up here. But as always, thank you so much for watching and for making it.
This one is, you know, and I'm not surprised the gaming community he was with tracked him down. If you've ever watched Don't F with Cats on Netflix, You know what I'm saying? Internet is very powerful when it comes to like rallying and trying to find someone that does something very wrong. And I'm glad for that. You know, it's thanks to small niche communities and internet that sometimes you find the person you need to find that like needs to be reported to the authorities. But yeah, this was depressing. This was I don't understand what brings someone to do that. You know, just his lies spiraled out of control, and he just acted on it. Like I said, if you want to end someone's life, you should probably start with yourself. That's really believe that. This is a good channel, man. I'll subscribe and like. I like this guy. Good commentary. Really put me in the story. I felt like, you know, it was a movie or something. Okay. Well, I'm gonna leave the original in the description as per usual. If you guys want more content like this, more true crime, make sure to leave a comment. And yeah, that's pretty much it. As per usual, this is your boy Said Reacts. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I'm out. Peace.